Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Heatland. Davey Prana, how are you doing out there? Can't hear you, baby.
It's 90 degrees here.
Probably the same here. However, you're down by the ocean, so that's completely unfair.
I know.
Sunanda, how's it in Irvine?
93.
93.
And humid.
Okay, John, what's it reading like over your way? Can't hear you, John.
Oh, now I did it.
Yeah.
97 on the Riviera.
Okay.
Ooh.
So far,
What a
you're
nice-
winning this race. Leto, tell us about Orange County. Nothing from Leto. He died of heat exposure. Okay, Dottie. Nothing from Dottie either. They died together. Very sad. 90. Okay, John, you score. You won.
Ghastly.
It's ghastly. Yeah. Okay, so here we are. I just have to do this or else I'm going to end up running into this. Okay, so here we are. This is not going to work, folks. You know I've got a Garwood shutter. It is going down. Oh. Okay, here we are. We are on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're starting fairly early. We're only in 1883. MS just met him in 1882, so there's a lot of discoveries that are happening, a lot of new people showing up that we'll recognize as we go further through this book. So it is February 25th, 1883. After his noon meal, the master conversed with the devotees. Ram, Kedar, Nijagopal, M, and others arrived from Kolkata. Rakhal, Harish, Latu, and Hazra were living with the master. Mr. Chowdhury, who had 3 or 4 university degrees and was a government officer, was also present. He had recently lost his wife and had visited the master several times for peace of mind. Master to Ram and the other devotees. Devotees like Rakhal, Narendra, and Pavanat may be called Nitya Siddha. Their spiritual consciousness has been awake since their very birth. They assume human bodies only to impart spiritual illumination to others. There is another class of devotees known as Kripa Siddha, that is to say, those on whom the grace of God descends all of a sudden and who at once attain his vision and knowledge. Such people may be likened to a room that has been dark 1,000 years, which, when a lamp is brought into it, becomes light immediately, not little by little. Those who lead a householder's life should practice spiritual discipline. They should pray earnestly to God in solitude. To Mr. Chowdhury, God cannot be realized through scholarship. Who indeed can understand the things of the Spirit through reason? No, all should strive for devotion to the lotus feet of God. Infinite are the glories of God. How little can you fathom them? Can you ever find out the meaning of God's ways? Bhishma was none other than one of the 8 Vasus, but even he shed tears on a bed of arrows. He said, "How astonishing! God himself is the companion of the Pandava brothers, and still there's no end to their troubles and sorrows. Who can ever understand the ways of God?" A man thinks, I've practiced a little prayer and austerity, so I've gained a victory over others. But victory, defeat lie with God. I've seen a prostitute dying in the Ganges, which means it's very auspicious to die in the Ganges. Everybody would like to die in the Ganges. That's freedom right there. And retaining consciousness to the end. Retaining consciousness to the end is also considered very auspicious. I've seen a prostitute die in the Ganges and retaining full consciousness to the end. Mr. Chowdhury, how can one see God? Master, not with these eyes. God gives one divine eyes, and only then can one behold him. God gave Arjuna divine eyes so that he might see his universal form. Your philosophy is mere speculation. It only reasons. God cannot be realized that way. God cannot remain unmoved if you have raga bhakti, that is, love of God with a passionate attachment to him. Do you know how fond God is of his devotees' love? It is like the cow's fondness for fodder mixed with oil cake. The cow gobbles it down greedily. Raga Bhakti is pure love of God, a love that seeks God alone and not any worldly end. Prahlada had it. Suppose you go to a wealthy man every day, but you seek no favor from him. You simply love to see him. If he wants to show you favor, you say, "No, sir, I don't need anything. I came just to see you." Such is love of God for its own sake. You simply love God and don't want anything from him in return. Saying this, the Master sang, "Though I am never loath to grant salvation, I hesitate indeed to grant pure love. Whoever wins pure love surpasses all. He is adored by men. He triumphs over the three worlds." He continued, "The gist of the whole thing is that one must develop passionate yearning for God and practice discrimination and renunciation." Mr. Chowdhury, "Sir, is it possible to have the vision of God without the help of a guru?" Master, "Satchidananda himself is the guru. At the end of the Shavasarana, just where the vision of the Ishta is about to take place, the guru appears before the aspirant and says to him, 'Behold, there is your Ishta.' Saying this, the guru merges in the Ishta. He who is the guru is also the Ishta. The guru is also the thread that leads to God. Women perform a ritualistic worship known as the Anantavrata, the object of worship being the infinite. But actually the deity worshipped is Vishnu. In him are the infinite forms of God. To Ram and the other devotees, if you asked me which form of God you should meditate upon, I should say fix your attention on that form of God which appeals to you the most. But know for certain that all forms are the forms of one God alone. Never harbor malice toward anyone. Shiva, Kali, Hari are but one different forms of that one. He is blessed indeed, who has known all as one. Outwardly, he appears as Shiva's devotee, but in his heart he worships Kali, the blissful mother, and with his tongue he chants aloud Lord Hari's name. The body does not endure without a trace of lust, anger, and the like. You should try to reduce them to a minimum. Looking at Kedar, the Master said, "He is very nice. He accepts both the absolute and the relative. He believes in Brahman, but he also accepts the gods and divine incarnations in human form." In Kedar's opinion, Sri Ramakrishna was such an incarnation. Looking at Nitya-Gopal, the Master said to the devotees, "He is in a lofty mood." To Nitya-Gopal, "Don't go there too often. You may go once in a while. She may be a devotee, but she is a woman too. Therefore, I warn you." The sannyasi must observe very strict discipline. He must not look even at the picture of a woman. But this rule doesn't apply to householders. An aspirant should not associate with women even though she is very much devoted to God. A sannyasi, even though he may have subdued his passions, should follow this discipline to set an example to householders. Worldly people learn renunciation by seeing the complete renunciation of a monk. Otherwise, they sink more and more. A sannyasi is a world teacher. And that is the end of that day. We then go into Friday, March 9th, 1883. About 9 o'clock in the morning, the Master was seated in his room with Rakhal, M., and a few other devotees. It was the day of the new moon. As usual with him on such days, Sri Ramakrishna entered again and again into communion with the Divine Mother. He said to the devotees, "God alone exists and all else is unreal. The Divine Mother has kept all deluded by her Maya. Look at men. Most of them are entangled in worldliness. They suffer so much, but still they have the same attachment to lust and greed. The camel eats thorny shrubs and blood gushes from its mouth. Still it will eat thorns. While suffering pain at the time of delivery, a woman says, 'I shall never go to my husband again.' But afterwards she forgets. The truth is that no one seeks God. There are people who eat the prickly leaves of the pineapple and not the fruit." Devotee, "Sir, why has God put us in this world?" Master, "The world is the field of action. Through action, one acquires knowledge. The guru instructs the disciple to perform certain works and refrain from others. Again, he advises the pupil to perform action without desiring the result. The impurity of the mind is destroyed through the performance of duty. It's like getting rid of a disease by means of medicine under the instruction of a competent physician. Why doesn't God free us from the world? He will free us when the disease is cured. He will liberate us from the world when we are through with the enjoyments of lust and greed. Once a man registers his name in the hospital, he cannot run away. The doctor will say, let him go away. The doctor will not let him go unless his illness is completely cured. During these days, Ramakrishna's heart overflowed with motherly love, like the love Yashoda felt for Krishna. So he kept Rakhal with him. Rakhal felt toward the master as a child feels towards its mother. He would sit leaning on the master's lap as a young child leans on its mother while sucking her breast. Rakhal was thus seated by the master when a man entered the room and said the high tide was coming into the Ganges. The master and the devotees ran to the Panchavati to see it. At the sight of a boat being tossed by the tide, Ramakrishna exclaimed, "Look, look, I hope nothing happens to it." They all sat in the Panchavati. The master asked M to explain the cause of the tide. M drew on the ground the figures of the sun, the moon, and the earth, and tried to explain gravitation, ebb tide, flood tide, new moon, full moon, eclipse, and so on. Master to M, "Stop it! I can't follow you. It makes me dizzy. My head is aching." Well, how can they know of things so far off? You see, during my childhood, I could paint well, but arithmetic would make my head spin. I couldn't learn simple arithmetic. Ramakrishna returned to his room with the devotees. Looking at a picture of Yashoda on the wall, he said, "It is not well done. She looks like a garland seller." I don't know what a garland seller looks like. I don't know. Well, whatever. That Yashoda looked like. The master enjoyed a nap after his noon meal. Adhar and the other devotees gradually gathered. This was Adhar's first visit, and Adhar becomes a very important person here in this Leela of Ramakrishna. He was a deputy magistrate and about 30 years old. Adhar to the master, "Sir, I have a question to ask. Is it good to sacrifice animals before the deity? It certainly involves killing." Master, the Shastra, that's the sacred scriptures, prescribes sacrifice on special occasion. Such sacrifice is not harmful. Take, for instance, the sacrifice of goat on the 8th day of the full or new moon. I am now in such a state of mind that I cannot practice such a sacrifice. Also, I cannot eat meat offered to the Divine Mother. Therefore, I touch my finger to it and then to my head, so she would not be angry, lest she be angry with me, she being Mother Kali. Again, in a certain state of mind, I see God in all beings, even in an ant. At that time, if I see a living being die, I find consolation in the thought that it is the death of the body. The soul is beyond life and death. One should not reason too much. It is enough if one loves the lotus feet of the mother. Too much reasoning throws the mind into confusion. You get clear water if you drink from the surface of a pool. Put your hand deeper and stir the water, it becomes muddy. Therefore, pray to God for devotion. Behind Dhruva's devotion, there was desire. He practiced austerities to gain his father's kingdom. But Prahlada's love for God was motiveless, a love that sought no return. A devotee, how can one realize God? Master, through that kind of love. But one must force one's demand on God. One should be able to say, "O God, wilt thou now reveal thyself to me? I will cut my throat with a knife." That is the tamas of bhakti. Devotee, can one see God? Master, yes, surely. And that word is emphasized, surely. Yes, surely. One can see both aspects of God, God with form and without form. One can see God with form, the embodiment of spirit. Again, God can be directly perceived as a man with a tangible form. Seeing an incarnation of God is the same as seeing God himself. God is born on earth as man in every age. And that's the end of that day. March 11th, 1883. It was Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. Many of his disciples and devotees wanted to celebrate the happy occasion at the Dakshineshwar temple garden. From early morning, the devotees streamed in alone or in parties. After the morning worship in the temples, sweet music played in the Nahabat. It was springtime. The trees, creepers, and plants were covered with new leaves and blossoms. The very air seemed laden with joy, and the hearts of the devotees were glad on this auspicious day. M arrived early in the morning and found the master talking smilingly to Bhavanat, Rakhal, and Kali Krishna. M prostrated himself before him. Master to M, I'm glad you have come. By the way, that Kali Krishna is Swami Virajananda, who we will see later in the play of Sri Ramakrishna and in the Ram. He's a very significant figure in the Ramakrishna order. He's the first disciple after the direct disciples to become president of the order. Master to M, I'm glad you have come. To the devotees, one cannot be spiritual as long as one has shame, hatred, or fear. Great will be the joy today, but those fools who will not come, sing or dance, mad with God's name, will never attain God. How can one feel any shame or fear when the names of God are sung? Now sing, all of you. Bhavanat and his friend Kali Krishna sang, Thrice blessed is this day of joy. May all of us unite, O Lord, to preach thy true religion here in India's holy land. Thou dwellest in each human heart, thy name resounding everywhere, fills the four corners of the sky. Today thy devotees proclaim thy boundless majesty. We seek not wealth, nor friends, or fame, O Lord. No other hope is ours. For thee alone thy devotees long with unflagging love. Safe at thy feet, what fear have we of death or danger? We have found the fount of immortality in thee, the victory, O Lord, to thee the victory. As Sri Ramakrishna listened to the song with folded hands, his mind soared off to a far-off realm. He remained absorbed in a meditation a long time, and after a while Kali Krishna whispered something to Bhavanat. Then he bowed before the master and rose. Sri Ramakrishna was surprised. He said, Where are you going? Bhavanat, he's going away on a little business. Master, what is it about? Bhavanat, he's going to Baranagar, Working Men's Institute. Master, it's his bad luck. A stream of bliss will flow here today. He could have enjoyed it, but how unlucky. Sri Ramakrishna did not feel well, so he decided not to bathe in the Ganges. About 9 o'clock, a few jars of water were taken from the river, when with the help of the devotees, he finished his bath on the veranda east of his room. After bathing, the master put on a new wearing cloth, all the while chanting the name of God. Accompanied by one or two disciples, he walked across the courtyard to the temple of Kali, still chanting her hallowed name. His eyes had an indrawn look, like that of a bird hatching her chick. On entering the temple, he prostrated himself before the image and worshipped the Divine Mother. But he did not observe any ritual of worship. Now he would offer flowers and sandal paste at the feet of the image, and now he put them on his own head. After finishing the worship in his own way, he asked Bhavanat to carry the green coconut that had been offered to the mother. He also visited the images of Radha and Krishna in the Vishnu temple. When the master returned to his room, he found that the other devotees had arrived, among them Ram, Nityagopal, and Kedar. They all saluted the master, who greeted them cordially. He asked Nityagopal, Will you eat something now? Yes, the devotee answered. Nityagopal, who was 23 or 24 years old and unmarried, was like a child. His mind was always soaring in the spiritual realm. He visited the master sometimes alone and sometimes in Ram's company. The master had observed the spiritual state of his mind and had become very fond of him. He remarked now and then how that Nityagopal was in the state of a Paramahamsa. After Nityagopal had finished eating, the master took him aside and gave him various instructions. A certain woman, about 31 years old and a great devotee, often visited Sri Ramakrishna and held him in high respect. She had been much impressed by Nityagopal's spiritual state and looked upon him as her own son, invited him to her own house. Master to Nityagopal, do you go there? Nityagopal, like a child, yes, I do. She takes me. Master, beware, holy man. Go there once in a great while, but not frequently, Otherwise, you will slip from the ideal. Maya is nothing but lust and greed. A holy man must live away from woman. All sink there. Even Brahma and Vishnu struggle for life in that whirlpool. Nitya Gopal listened to these words attentively, and to himself, how strange. This young man has developed the state of a Paramahamsa. That is what the master says now and then. Is there still a possibility of his falling into danger in spite of his high spiritual state? What an austere rule is laid down for a sadhu. He may slip from his ideal by associating intimately with women. How can an ordinary man expect to attain liberation unless such a high ideal is set by holy men? The woman in question is very devout. There's no danger. He said, but no, very devout, but still there is danger. Now I understand why Chaitanya punished his disciple, the younger Haridas, so severely. In spite of his teacher's prohibition, Haridas conversed with a woman devotee, but he was a sannyasi. Therefore, Chaitanya banished him. What a severe punishment. How hard is the rule for one who has accepted the life of renunciation. Again, what love the master cherishes for this devotee. He is warning him even now, lest he should run into danger in the future. Beware, holy man. These words of the master echoed in the hearts of the devotees like distant rumbling of thunder. The master went with the devotees to the northeast corner of his room. Among them was a householder from the village Dakshineshwar who studied Vedanta at home. He had been discussing Om with Kedar before the master. He said, this eternal world, the Anahata Shabda, is ever present within and without. Master, but the word is not enough. There must be something indicated by the word. Can your name alone make me happy? Complete happiness is not possible for me unless I see you. Devotee, the eternal word itself is Brahman. Master, to Kedar. Oh, don't you understand? He upholds the doctrine of the rishis of olden times. They once said to Rama, "Oh Rama, we know you only as the son of Dasharatha. Let sages like Bharadvaja worship you as God incarnate. We want to realize Brahman, the indivisible existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute." At these words, Rama smiled and went away. Kedar. Those rishis could not recognize Rama as an incarnation of God. They must have been fools. Master, seriously, please don't say such a thing. People worship God according to their tastes and temperaments. The mother cooks the same fish differently for her children, that each one may have what suits his stomach. For some, she cooks the rich dish of palau, but not all children can digest it. For those who with weak stomachs, she prepares soup. Some again like fried fish or pickled fish. It all depends on one's taste. The rishis followed the path of jnana. Therefore, they sought to realize Brahman, the indivisible existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. But those who follow the path of devotion seek an incarnation of God to enjoy the sweetness of bhakti. The darkness of the mind disappears when God is realized. In the Purana, it is said that it was as if 100 suns were shining when Rama entered the court. Why then weren't the courtiers burnt up? It was because the brilliance of Rama was not like a material object. As the lotus blooms when the sun rises, so the lotus in the hearts of the people assembled in the court burst into blossom. As the master uttered these words, standing before the devotees, he suddenly fell into an ecstatic mood. His mind was withdrawn from external objects. No sooner did he said, "The lotus of the heart bursts into blossom," than he went into deep samadhi. He stood motionless, his countenance beaming, and his lips parted in a smile. After a long while, he returned to normal consciousness of the world. He drew a long breath and repeatedly chanted the names of Rama, every word showering nectar in the hearts of the devotees. The master sat down. The others seated themselves around him. Master to the devotees. Ordinary people do not recognize the advent of an incarnation of God. He comes in secret. Only a few of his intimate disciples can recognize him. That Rama was both Brahman absolute and a perfect incarnation of God in human form was known only to 12 rishis. The other sages said to him, Rama, we know you only as Dasharatha's son. Can everyone comprehend Brahman, the indivisible existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute? He alone has attained perfect love of God, who, having reached the absolute, keeps himself on the realm of the relative in order to enjoy the divine Leela. A man can describe the ways and activities of the queen, that's Queen Victoria, if he has previously visited her in England. Only then will his description of the queen be correct. Sages like Bharadvaja adored Rama and said, O Rama, you are nothing but the indivisible Satchidananda. You have appeared before us as a human being, but you look like a man because you have shrouded yourself with your own Maya. These rishis were great devotees of Brahma and had supreme love of God. Presently, some devotees from Kanagar arrived, singing kirtan to the accompaniment of drums and cymbals. As they reached the northeast corner veranda of Sri Ramakrishna's room, the master joined in the music, dancing with him, intoxicated with divine joy. Now and then he went into samadhi, standing still as a statue. While he was in one of these states of divine unconsciousness, the devotees put thick garlands of jasmine around his neck. The enchanting form of the master reminded the devotees of Chaitanya, another incarnation of God. The master passed alternately through 3 moods of divine consciousness: the inmost, when he completely lost all knowledge of the outer world; the semi-conscious, when he danced with the devotees in the ecstasy of love; and the conscious, when he joined them in loud singing. It was indeed a sight for the gods to see the master standing motionless in samadhi, with fragrant garlands hanging from his neck, his countenance beaming with love, and the devotees singing and dancing around him. And that is today's reading. Now, are there any questions, any things we'd like to talk about? Yes, John. Yes, John, how can we help? You're muted, John.
Okay, it takes about 3 tries to do it.
Yeah.
God is born as man in every teacher. Makes me wonder what a teacher is. That statement from the first third of your reading.
Say that again.
I believe I heard you correctly. I want to make sure of this. God is born as man in every teacher.
Yes, because the guru is God himself.
Is that every teacher is that way?
No. Only advanced spiritual teachers. Your guru. Your guru should not ever be regarded as just an ordinary human being, but as a manifestation of the divine. Of course, every being is a manifestation of the divine to one extent or the other. But every being is covered by ignorance to either a tiny degree or to a massive extent. So the guru is worshipped as God, as he used with the illustration. Just before the person's in doing Shavasana, they're sitting on a corpse to realize the Divine Mother. Just before the Divine Mother appears, that guru appears and says, "Here is your Ishta," and then he merges into the form of God that we love. There was a wonderful incident that Swami Swahananda used to tell of a devotee named Kusum, who was a disciple of Swami Akhandananda, I believe. And she had died, and then Swami Akhandananda, some years later, became quite ill, and he was running a high fever and was very close to death. And he looked over in his illness, and here was Kusum fanning him. It's like, Kusum, yeah, didn't you die? Yes, I died. She said, Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna has sent me to take care of you. And he said, tell me what happened when you died. And she said, I was in tremendous pain. And then all of a sudden it was released, and you came, and you, my guru, came to me. You were wearing a hood. You took me by the hand, and we went into chariot. And the chariot went higher and higher and higher. And then the hood came off, and it was Thakur looking at me. And you went, where's my guru? And he said, it was me the whole time. but I came in the form of your guru. So our guru comes to, the God, the divine, comes to us in the form of the guru in order to bring us to the Lord. Otherwise, we have we need a human being to approach God. To approach,
How do we
even
know
to
whether-
approach an incarnation, we need a human manifestation to feel relaxed, to be able to offer, to give questions to open our hearts to. Because that way we have a two-way conversation. To Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and all of the great incarnations, we can plead. Words like, and, give me some feedback here. You know, either a brick falls on us or we're looking for some sort of response. The guru, we get good response. Anything
How
else?
do you know what a guru is?
Who is the guru?
Yeah, how do we know that someone is a guru?
Well, you would know by that person's holiness. I once asked my guru, Swami Prabhavananda, there's so many avatars and people who say that they're holy, and how do you tell the real from the fake? And he said, look at their lives. He said, they should lead an absolutely pure life, and they should never ask for money. He said a true guru hopes and expects his disciples to exceed him in holiness and in realization. He is truly happy when the disciples excel him in every way. They will never ask for money, and a true guru is a man of pure holiness that you look. Sri Ramakrishna said, test me like a money changer tests gold. Biting the coin. Test me, look at my life, check everything. So once you really check and feel in your heart, that's it. He's speaking the truth. He wants nothing but my own good. Then you've met a guru. Nothing but that. Okay, so tomorrow, Swami Vedarupananda will speak on the divinity of man. I don't want to go into gender thing, but the divinity of all, anyway, the divinity of man. I believe Swami Vivekananda gave a talk just on that very topic. On the following Wednesday, we will have a reading from not spiritual talks, the letters of Swami Turiyananda. And next Saturday, a week from today, we will have more from the readings of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Okay, conclude with a chant. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Stay cool, everybody. Take care. Don't go running in the sun. And thanks, everyone, for being here. Jai Shri Ramakrishna.